Well, in today's video, we're going to be taking you to the town of Monchique. And Monchique lies about an hour and a half out of Albufeira. It's a pleasant drive through the hills here that surround Albufeira. And next stop, Monchique. Just pulled into a small area with a lookout, and it is this is definitely called Wild Portugal. Gravel road in, and I'm hopeful that we'll have some good views from the top here to give you an idea what it looks like outside of the Albufeira area. So one thing comes to mind as I'm walking up this trail here to this lookout here on road to Monchique. You see a lot of caravanners here and camp spots, at least near Albufeira, the major towns along the Algarve. They're really hard to get access to. So perhaps you've got a thought of, well, I'll just take my rig out here and park amongst nature here. Great idea. You're not going to find a lot of people. However, having been through some of the wildfires in British Columbia, I think the only caution I have for folks who have any ideas of wild or free camping here is if there's a fire up here, you could be in trouble because there's not a lot of access roads out other than the highway. So yep, it's cheap, it's free. You got some spectacular views up here, but I guess safety is something to be considered as well. Just looking out into the distance, there's a lot of eucalyptus plantations and shrubbery and lots of hills. There are a few settlements or towns off in the distance, and there's certainly roads that navigate through the hills here, but it's pretty quiet up here. Time to get back into our Fiat 500 and onward to Monchique. Suggestion, when you're in the Algarve, you may want to consider getting a rental car like the one we have behind us here, because without a car you're going to be missing out a lot of the hills that lie above the coastal communities of the Algarve. If this kind of sightseeing interests you, it's definitely unique, definitely different than the coastal communities. You're going to need a car. I'm sure there's buses that do run up here. I don't have a clue how often they run, probably not that frequent. But these drives that surround Albufeira up in the hills on the way to Monchique, it's really quite pretty up here. It's very peaceful, very few cars, safe driving, and something I would recommend doing. But you're going to need a car. Well, we have arrived in the town of Monchique. I will admit it was a bit of a white knuckler. We took a side street here. It got pretty narrow, pretty tight, and it was an adventure of its own. So if you're looking for something really thrilling, try driving these back streets here in these little towns. That I'm going to offer you folks that we weren't made aware of when we left Canada for Portugal is here in the country, if you have any currency denominations over 100 euros, they're extremely suspicious about money laundering here, and most places, whether it's even a restaurant or a grocery store, they will not take your currency if it's a $200 note or higher. So we've had to actually come to one of these banks here on Monchique to convert our currency into smaller bills. Otherwise, you're just out of luck. So if you're coming to Portugal and you're getting currency at your local branch in your town, wherever that may be, ask for bills under 100 euros. So here's a top tip for you folks. If you're coming to Portugal and you decide you want to rent a car, I'd recommend you get the smallest vehicle possible. The streets here, if you end up driving into the smaller towns or what they call centro, the streets are very narrow and definitely not conducive for the big North American sedans that we like to rent back home. Get the smallest car possible. So as you take the trail here to the convent at the top, you can see a lot of the trees where they've stripped the cork off. And if you're interested in that kind of thing, there's quite a few of them to look at here. To this fellow here with a disability, and he's offered us to look at the old convent up here, which is in disrepair. It needs some work for sure, guys. And he's offered me to have a look inside there, and I'm a little skeptical about that one. You know, you just have to be safe when you're traveling. But a lot of the Portuguese here, they're not really wealthy people. So I'm going to go back inside there and I'm going to give the old fellow there some money, which for us it's not much, but if it can help him out. Okay, so I'm going to head inside here. I'm just going to drop some cash off for this fellow here. So this was apparently an old monastery, some monks up here. We ran into some other folks that went inside. It's in disrepair, but look, if we can help somebody out, here we go. Olá. Obrigado. Obrigado.
Obrigado. Veja aí dentro e veja aqui dentro.
Prego. Well, without a doubt, the old convent up here, it's definitely in disrepair. And if anything is in need of a GoFundMe page, this place needs it. Well, that was definitely something new for Petemax Adventures. Can't say done anything of that sort in the past, but we're gonna promptly make our way back towards town now. And the weather's definitely starting to change. Looks like rain is not far off now, so we're heading back down to Monchique. Well, one thing that we've noticed about here in Monchique that we weren't expecting is it is quite a little mecca for hiking. There are a lot of circuits you can do here that navigate through the hills up and around here in Monchique area. And some of them will communicate to neighboring towns and back. And it's also a fairly big area for cycling. We've actually seen quite a few cyclists stopping at this coffee bar across the street here. And if you're into cycling, this might be a place to come as well. There's lots of hills. Well, that was a great day here in the town of Monchique. I hope you enjoyed the tour of the area here and the drive getting here. It's really peaceful. It's spectacular. Rent yourself a car, drive up to Monchique. I don't think you're going to regret that. And until we head back to Albufeira, we're going to pop in a little restaurant back here and try some authentic Portuguese food. Well, here's another fun fact for Portugal. If you're trying to eat at one of the restaurants here, check when they're open, check when they're closed. Just try to eat here in Monchique, and they are now closed until 6 p.m. Well, if you've ever wondered what cork looks like before it gets to your wine bottle, I was lucky enough to find a whole bunch of the stuff here. So I've got a slab of cork tree bark here, and it's a pretty good chunk of it here, and it weighs maybe 2 pounds in total. It's kind of neat to see how the cork looks in its raw form. Our next adventure, I want to thank you for watching. Thanks for subscribing. And from Portugal, ciao. Okay, well, I've met up with the official spokesperson for Monchique here, and we're gonna just have a little sit down here and find out exactly what there is to see and do here in Monchique. And here's Madame Monchique. And we know there's lots of biking and lots of hiking, but what do you have to say for this town?